What's goody gang? Today we have Is LeBron on Steroids? Highly requested video. You guys have been showing a lot of love for the MJ and LeBron videos, so we've been doing a lot. Checking out some history, checking out some old school NBA, checking out some new school type videos because y'all been wanting to see the LeBron videos, such as like the LeChoke video and other videos like that. So if you guys want to see other stuff like that, drop it down in the comments. But with that being said, like the video. By liking the video, the way YouTube algorithm works, YouTube puts your video out to more people. You'll be directly helping me to grow, and subscribe to the channel. I'm not gonna hold y'all any longer. We just gonna go ahead and check it out. I know there's gonna be that type of video, but I'm ready for it. Y'all know what time it is, man. Let's get it.
Up and away. Super washed, ain't he? Stay low and keep
Washed.
firing. The air up there is a tad bit different. Live, laugh, love. This is LeBron James's Instagram caption to a photo of him dunking against the Charlotte Hornets, en route to a 27-point, 9-assist game. It was his last game of his first season as a Laker, and he'd averaged 27.4 points, 8.3 assists, and 8.5 rebounds, with the second leading scorer being 21-year-old Brandon Ingram. And, of course, this was 7 years ago. Aside from the infamous F-retweet that somehow lost its relevance before LeBron lost his on the court, there weren't too many people putting LeBron, Ramon James, and the concept of washed together. However, the first questions of whether or not Father Time would defeat LeBron came in that first season
I wouldn't
with the
say he
Lakers,
completely
where he
washed.
suffered his first major injury on Christmas Day in 2018. But since then, he's won a championship, averaged over 30 points a game in a season, played with his son on an NBA court, and is the first option on a playoff team at age 41. Is he on steroids? Find out this time on Kid Comment 11.
So that just
LeBron
means he got to
James
be
is,
on
as
them
we all know,
roids,
a
right?
genetic freak. An NBA caliber player by the age of 16. He's a 6'8", 250-pound behemoth that sometimes played at 280 pounds and had his max vertical clocked in at 44 inches in his prime. From a pure athleticism standpoint, there is nothing that another player in the NBA has, can, or will do that prime LeBron could not. But what might somehow be more impressive than his peak athleticism is how much of it he's been able to retain over the 2 decades that he's been in the league. One of the most impressive feats in NBA history came at the age of 31 for him, which may not seem old now, but a decade ago is considered the start of the hashtag decline. There are only 3 All-Stars older than LeBron that season, which was 10 years ago, by the way. Dwayne Wade at 34, Pau Gasol at 35, and retirement tour Kobe Bryant. None of them known remotely at that point for the athleticism, naturally. It was evident also in the performance of his age mates, Chris Paul, Chris Bosh, and Carmelo Anthony. Bosh, due to medical reasons, played his last game in 2016.
He the only one still standing.
Melo had one more All-Star year before turning into a role player. Chris Paul is Chris Paul, but before his resurgence with OKC, he was considered a buyout candidate not remotely worth the max deal. LeBron, who at 41 could still command the max, obviously didn't have that problem. And if we're being honest here, LeBron James is the greatest player ever, based strictly off longevity. I mean, we're talking about a guy who came into the league as a teenager.
He said it, not me.
12. He just turned 19 on the 30th of December.
Became a top 10 player in the world by the age of 20, and stayed as a top 10 player for 20 years after that. He holds the record for playoff games played, playoff wins, points, assists, and steals, regular season wins, points, and yes, more minutes played than anyone in NBA history. Who cares that he's gone 4-6 and Michael's gone 6-0? Who cares about the 2011 finals performance, which was 15 years ago, by the way? Who cares if MJ had the killer mentality? At the end of the day, Jordan could not do what LeBron has done. Which then I think leads us pretty naturally into our next question. Is LeBron on steroids? Is there a singular person on this earth, seriously, who's lived, living now, and will live that could accomplish a 2-decade run like LeBron has? Weigh over 250 pounds and compete over 100 times a year at an average of 2 miles a game, running, dunking, getting contact in, pivoting, blocking against the world's best athletes? And even if they could, would that be all natural? Of course, we don't have the answer to this question. Anyone who could, if they said it, would have the black trucks at their door within the day. But that said, there are some clues that are too convincing to just wave off. Before we get to that though,
Before we even go too much further into it, I just feel like, I mean, he does have a run that is completely insane when you think about the longevity of careers that came before his. He has a run that's kind of different. It could be some type of enhancements. There's a lot of enhancements nowadays, so I'm not gonna just throw that completely out the window. And The only thing I'd say is, doesn't the NBA like drug test for steroids and things like that? I don't know for sure. Let me know in the comments. I would think that they do, but if they don't, then maybe. But if that's the case, you know, other players could also use it too, in a sense, if he's using these type of undetectable or these steroids or drugs that they're not detected for, then I believe that other players could be using that too. So I'm not just going to throw him straight on a limb and say it will only be him, but it's definitely an unnatural run. I'll say 20 years strong, going into the 41 season, going into the year 41 season, and then not only that, playing with his son. That's pretty insane. That's a pretty insane feat that really just transcends time. So I could understand why they start talking about those type of little tedious aspects and talking about the drugs and things like that. I mean, let's see what the argument is, and let's see what these facts that he's talking about that he believes that he has. Because I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm not saying what he's speaking on is unheard of. So let's jump into it.
Let's talk about it. What is a steroid in the first place? Well, let's get chemical. A steroid is an organic compound that is an essential biological molecule for life. They help tell the body what to produce. For example, estrogen, which develops feminine characteristics in the body, and testosterone, which develops male characteristics in the body, are steroids. By the way, this is grossly oversimplified. What we know as steroids are actually anabolic steroids, which are artificial compounds that mimic natural signaling. That is, if you're an athlete, you take anabolic steroids to trick the body into thinking that it has more testosterone. And your body responds by, if you work out, giving you noted increases in muscle size, strength, and performance. Now, while steroids are the most famous example, there are other ways to improve performance
so
as well,
LeBron
like
is on
peptides.
that?
And the term to cover them all is performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs. And the act of taking PEDs is known as doping. To find out what pro athletes actually take, I spoke with the Chief Science Officer of the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, or USADA, Dr. Matthew Fedoruk.
It's not just anabolic steroids. It's protein hormones and growth factors. It's growth hormone. It's beta-2 agonists and inhalers. It's diuretics.
So the question is now, why are PEDs banned? Well, who better to ask than the doctor?
We want to preserve
He would do his research.
the integrity of the sport. And I think fans and athletes themselves want to see a level playing field. They want to see the athletes performing at their best, but they don't want to see athletes that are just performing based on who has the best pharmacological advantage or the best doctor that's giving them drugs in order to perform better. And it also, reduces sport to, just pure entertainment. And although there's an entertainment value behind sport, I think sport is more meaningful than that. And both athletes and fans deserve to see, a level playing field and healthy athletes out there.
The NBA explicitly bans over 200 compounds, from coke to tramadol,
Over
a severe pain
200?
medication that got Bobby Portis suspended 25 games a few years back. Among those are a host of peptides and steroids that stimulate the production of testosterone, as well as other compounds that augment performance.
You can imagine that if you're taking an anabolic steroid, well, it may not just help you improve your strength and power.
Well, I'll say this real quick, guys. Honestly, if you are using any of these PEDs or performance enhancement drugs, then it would be cheating, in my opinion. And if the other players aren't on these same type of enhancements that you're on, then it's not a level playing field, and there's the rules and regulations for a reason. And that goes back to me saying, I don't know if whatever they're saying that he's using is undetectable or anything like that. And I don't know if he is using that, then honestly, then what are they saying? His whole longevity thing and his whole entire career is a cheat because he's been taking this type of insane drug, or maybe he's naturally just built different than other athletes. It could be either or. I'm not saying which one it is. All I'm saying is that if anybody, including LeBron, is taking this, because if he's taking it, then maybe other athletes could be taking it. Then that would be completely a cheat code for them, because you would have a level, it wouldn't be a level playing field. You'd have a level up on whatever athletes that you're playing against. I don't feel like that would be fair. So definitely thinking that, there was different kinds. I didn't know there was different kinds, so we're learning a little bit, and he definitely did his research. So it's an educational style video. I'm appreciating it. It's like, okay. Let's learn a little something. Let's jump back into it.
say in the weight room or make your muscles more effective, but it also may help in of preventing fatigue. Other performance enhancing drugs may help you with your endurance and allow you to
See, I
play
only knew about the
longer
part for the
on that
muscles.
field of play. Or it may help you recover between games.
Despite
Well, it
there
can
being
do
a
a
host
lot
of drugs
more
that are
than just the
banned from the
muscles.
NBA, with the thousands of players that have came and went since the NBA started testing in 1999, there have only been 13 players caught using them. Now, does that mean that there have been 13 players in the existence of the NBA to ever use them? Well, let's think logically. In an endeavor that poses direct financial incentive to better performance, less than 0.6% of them have used them to better their performance. Let's turn our attention now to the 2011 Track and Field World Championships. Out of the 440 athletes who competed, just 2 tested positive for PEDs, which just happens to be 0.5%, which is about the same for the NBA. But now here's the kicker. In a study commissioned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, the athletes that competed in the 2011 Worlds were given an anonymous survey that compelled them to admit whether or not they'd used PEDs, and 43.6% of them said that they had. This isn't an anomaly either. In 1985, before
43%.
PED testing existed in American sports leagues, there was a Sports Illustrated article that detailed the rampant use of steroids in the NFL at the time. In the article, estimates from players that were interviewed on the percentage of players that did PEDs in the NFL ranged from 40 to 90%. It wasn't just hearsay either. In a
Whoa.
study that interviewed over 2,500 former NFL players in the early 2000s, 9.1% of them admitted to using anabolic steroids during their career, and that number rose to 20% for players that played in the 80s. Now, the NBA started testing for PEDs in 1987 and suspending players in 1989. Since then, there have been 250 player suspensions from the NFL for PEDs. Major League Baseball, of course, was also busted in a big way in the 2000s. That all said, it's safe to say that not everyone
There's
is
a lot
getting
of pressure
caught.
to perform.
Why?
Well, what keeps me up at night, and one of the challenges that we're seeing in the use of doping substances is you can imagine that if you're taking a synthetic steroid, for example, if that steroid doesn't occur naturally in our bodies, then that's going to be relatively easy to detect. But what some athletes are doing now is they're actually using substances that our bodies produce naturally and using more of those synthetic substances in order to enhance their performance. So a good example of that is a blood boosting drug called EPO. So EPO is erythropoietin. It's used by endurance athletes. It's actually been developed as a drug, so it's used to treat ill people that maybe can't produce red blood cells. But starting in the 90s, this drug came out onto the market, and even before it was on the market, it was being used by cyclists and other endurance athletes to dope.
In 2012, ESPN put out a story where the World
Wow.
Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA, called out the NBA for its, quote, gaps in PED testing. During the doping scandal that embroiled baseball, David Stern was called to testify before Congress, where he declared in a statement that illicit substances that could assist athletes in strength sports or endurance sports are not likely to be of benefit to NBA players. Largely because of this reasoning, and the public's conviction that NBA players were clean, the NBA's anti-doping tests had gaps. The MLB and NFL weren't as bad, according to WADA, but still not as strong as they would have liked. At the time, there had been 4 NBA players that had been caught with substances that could be classified as performance enhancers, and 2 of them were from Darius Miles and Lindsey Hunter taking a mid-2010s version of Ozempic. The other 2 were Rashard Lewis,
Ozempic.
who took an over-the-counter pill, and OJ Mayo, who drank a gas station energy drink. They were all suspended 10 games. For all intents and purposes,
gas
like
station energy
NBPA
drink.
President Billy Hunter proclaimed in 2012,
I firmly believe that the use of steroids and other performance-enhancing drugs is virtually non-existent, and I quote, non-existent in the NBA.
but that's not what Derrick Rose thought. In 2011, ESPN the magazine asked several professional athletes how big illegal enhancing was in their sport on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being everyone's juicing. D. Rose was one of the players who was asked, and he said 7. It's huge, and I think we need a level playing field
7?
where nobody has that advantage over the next person. Shortly after the article was published, D. Rose came out and said, in a statement released through the Bulls, regarding the quote attributed to me in ESPN the magazine, I do not recall making the statement, nor do I recall the question being asked. If that was my response to any question, I clearly misunderstood what was asked of me. But let me be clear, I do not believe there is a performance-enhancing drug problem in the NBA.
So-
He added later,
so
if
he
there was a drug
redacted?
problem, we get tested 4 times, so it'd definitely show up or something. There's definitely not a drug problem in the NBA. Former NBA player John
Maybe he
Sally,
felt like
on
he
an
answered
all-encompassing interview with DJ Vlad TV, was asked about D-Rose's initial quote.
He heard him
Did
wrong,
he know
probably.
what it was?
Later on, he said, I do not recall making the statement, nor do I recall the question being asked. If that was my response to any question, I clearly misunderstood
Yeah,
what was asked of me.
yeah, because he didn't know what it was.
Okay.
Henry Abbott, the reporter who published a story on WADA for ESPN and the head of ESPN's print and digital team from 2014 to 2019, said otherwise.
I think he was telling the truth. Of course he was. Like, what? Explain to me. It's just impossible for me to imagine the thought process by which
Okay, real quick. So what? So I guess the argument here is maybe he was telling the truth, and maybe somebody made him retract his statement. I thought at first he just heard the question wrong, and he just answered a question that he thought he heard, and that's not what he actually heard, and then he had to go back and just correct himself. But the way they're making it seem like it is somebody came to him and was like, you said this, you gotta do something about that. Like, and you know, there's these lines, these thin lines in the NBA. Like, you gotta read between the lines sometimes, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of media stuff. The NBA is definitely about media, so you definitely gotta understand they can't have any type of bad publicity connected to the NBA, period. They hate that type of stuff because it's such a huge entity. But at the same time, I'll say that it's possibly a thing. Like, there's definitely a lot of people with a lot of wealth. So even if some of the people are taking it, some of the people are probably taking stuff that was undetectable. And then one of these guys, they said, took a gas station energy drink. How was that an enhancement? Was that like a intentional enhancement, or was that like a Monster drink or like a Red Bull? They can't drink that either. But at the end of the day, it's like, it just depends on what type of enhancement there is. But there's a lot of different type of enhancement when it comes down to these steroids, which is something I'm learning in this video. I thought it was only like, okay, with the weightlifting and you take the steroids and your muscles are more defined, you could see the muscles more they're popping. But at the same time, according to the video, the PEDs can do so much according to different type of things, like stamina. They can help with the stamina, they can help with endurance, they can help with recovery between plays. So there's a bunch of different type of PEDs they can take, and they possibly have the money to take it, but at the same time, they would be detectable. And D Rose said something interesting, because he was like, yeah, we take drug tests about 4 times, so if anybody was taking anything, then it would possibly be detected, as he said in his second statement, after saying that he thinks maybe 7 out of 10 people are probably taking some type of enhancements. But at the same time, who knows? Maybe he misunderstood, or maybe somebody was on his tail, and maybe he wanted to stay in his spot. Maybe he didn't want to lose his spot in the NBA for saying something wrong that he probably meant in the moment, but can't be said because of the media. But let me know what you guys think. More on that. Let's jump back into it.
a player would have a whoopsie responding to a journalist about how many out of 10 concern they have about doping in the NBA, right? Like everybody knew he was telling the truth, right? And then, they'll walk it back. Well, that's where the real story is, right? The scandals and the cover-up, right? Like who calls Derek to say that he's wrong about the game that he plays for a living?
The next question that Vlad asked Sally was about George Karl, former coach of the Denver Nuggets, who, in his book Furious George, accused players of taking PEDs, despite, I should say, not having any concrete evidence, which he admits.
It's obvious some of our players are doping. How are some guys getting older, yet thinner and fitter? How are they recovering from injuries so fast? Why the hell are they going to Germany in the off-season? I doubt it's for the sauerkraut.
Going to Germany.
More likely, it's for the newest, hard-to-detect blood boosters and PEDs they have in Europe. Unfortunately, drug testing has always been a couple of steps behind the drug hiding. Lance Armstrong never failed a drug test. I think we want the best athletes to succeed, not the biggest, richest cheaters employing the best scientists. But I don't know what to do about it.
Is he throwing that for LeBron, though?
I love Joe. But
Sounds
this
like
is
he's throwing
the
that for
deal.
LeBron.
One, when you went to Germany, you get PRP, where they take your blood out, spin it, oxidize it, put it back into the joint area, helping healing faster. For you not to want science to do greatness on keeping this unbelievable avatar going, you're crazy. If you're not hurting anybody, you should do that.
Is it
They wouldn't say
enhanced?
anything of Tom Cruise. took steroids. They didn't say anything when Sylvester Stallone would have taken steroids or Arnold Schwarzenegger would have taken steroids. If it's to keep them to entertain people, they really don't care about us. So whatever you have to do or whatever you do to maintain your ability as Ocho Cinco
he with
say,
it.
the ability to provide, because that's the most unbelievable stress, you should do it. And if other guys are not up on the new joints, they lose.
Make of that what you will.
He
In
definitely
another
seemed like he
Vlad
was with
interview,
it.
former NBA player Sebastian Telfair was asked whether or not he saw any other NBA players taking steroids.
Steroids?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No. Vlad, I was in the NBA, you feel me? So I was in the room. It's another curtain that you gotta get behind. You feel me? They ain't let me behind that other curtain. You know what I'm saying? So
He wasn't
I don't know.
in there. Like, you know, he wasn't in there.
You don't get
Am
me
I right, though?
You gonna get me to the shit. And I don't really
Rampant.
some conversations I don't want to be in the middle of.
In 2013, a former employee of the anti-aging clinic Biogenesis, irritated because of an unpaid loan, turned over boxes of documents to the Miami New Times, which contained handwritten nicknames of baseball players linking them with the purchase of steroids, more specifically HGH, or human growth hormone.
Baseball
The MLB
players?
bought the documents from the New Times and sued the CEO of the clinic, Anthony Bosch, which parlayed into the suspensions of 13 players in the MLB, including Alex Rodriguez for an entire season. But it wasn't just MLB players that were going to the clinic. The disgruntled former employee, Peter Fisher, told ESPN that athletes from the NBA, NCAA, pro boxing, tennis, and MMA were all buyers
They
of
all in there.
PEDs. But the
Oh, my
MLB
goodness.
was the only league to pursue investigations.
What?
An independent news outlet at the time, IBN Sports Report, interviewed an alleged assistant of the company who, according to the interviewer, who goes by the name Incarcerated Bob, was in charge of keeping pretty much every financial transfer at Biogenesis. Here's the interview. What names stood out to you? LJ, JN, Francisco, Cruz. These were the names that you just had and were told to put in the bucks? Yes. How did that work? Would money come in? Did Mr. Bosch tell you to put some initials in the box? Yes. Like LJ, someone named Mr. Paul would come in and Mr. Bosch would give a check to put in the book LJ as being paid for the month. Now, you also said a
So
JN.
LJ
Well,
is
who did that
is
stand for?
LeBron?
Jameer Nelson. How do you know JN is Jameer Nelson? Well, he came into the office. So you're saying Jameer Nelson came in person? Yes. What did he take? Did he make a payment? Yes, he took products. Did he actually pay? Yeah, he paid in cash. Now, again, the name of the interviewer here is Incarcerated Bob, so we could probably take this with a grain of salt. But in documents on
At least that one, I'll say, yeah, you take that one with a grain of salt. We don't even know who the interviewer is. No names, LJ and JN. Jameer Nelson, I mean, it kind of sounds accurate because Jameer Nelson did have an injury, I think, whenever he was playing for the Magic, which derailed his career. So he probably would have needed some type of juicing. And I know with the way LeBron has been playing at this age and the longevity of his career, it definitely makes it seem like it's definitely could be a possibility that he's on some type of steroids or some type of enhancements, PEDs, even if it's not just a muscle type. It just, whatever he's taking to prolong his career, it definitely seems very likely. I'm not gonna lie, because honestly, it's not humanly possible at 41 to still be moving and playing at the level he's playing. That's what makes it stand out a little bit to me, to be completely honest. But at the same time, I'll say that there's possibly, like, I don't want to say 7 out of 10 like D Rose answered that first time in his answer, but it's definitely a high number of players that possibly use some type of PEDs to play at the level and compete, because there's a lot of, I'll say a lot of pressure. There's a lot of on their backs to provide, to do what they need to do to be better than the next guy. There's competition everywhere and everybody's a super great athlete naturally, or whatever enhancement that they could possibly get their hands on. So it's definitely a big competition within competition. I'll say that. But go ahead and jump back into it. Let's get it.
Unveiled by ESPN in 2023, it was found that Randy Mims, another LeBron James associate, and David Alexander, a trainer affiliated with LeBron, were also found taking PEDs from Biogenesis. Investigators, however, found no wrongdoing from LeBron. Jameer Nelson has never publicly tested positive for PEDs. LeBron James, as well, has never tested positive.
So
Nor
he's
have
never
there been
tested
any
positive.
accusations of him taking steroids. Well, actually, there is one.
That might be the best
Bron
Bron we ever
was,
seen. I ain't gonna lie.
He was on steroids, bro. He had to sit out. He was on steroids.
From Jeff Teague.
Now give me
like legit was on steroids, bro. Allegedly. But like he had to sit out. But y'all remember when they told him like they
There
gonna
goes the
start
Clutch Sports allegations.
Y'all remember that?
I don't know, Jeff Teague, he said a lot of stuff on his
everybody,
podcast.
they started testing for HGH, and they was like, yo, and he had to sit out. Like he said his back was hurt, and he sat out for like 3 weeks, and he came back skinny. This is just, I was in the league, I remember. And he came back in, he was
gonna have to look
crazy.
into that.
The time Jeff is referring to is when LeBron was coming into the 2014 season for his first year as a Cavalier once more. He was skinny, incredibly skinny, much more than he had ever looked, which was credited to a new diet that had slimmed out the frame.
Okay,
However,
a
the work
diet.
did not fit him well at all, and the Cavaliers were struggling. LeBron was not himself, and in the beginning of calendar year 2015, he announced that he would be taking a mid-season 3-week break to Miami. After 3 weeks, he returned and looked completely refreshed. In his first game back against the Phoenix Suns, he had 33 points in 37 minutes. And halfway through the game, off of his own missed free throw and a rebound from Sean Marion, he had this putback dunk.
Missed it though. And it's fouled in by 23, erasing his own mistake. Physically, he's looking pretty good right now. I would say so.
He said after the game, "I haven't felt like this in a long time. I wasn't doing this before I took the rest." It was in that year, in April, where the NBA had announced, finally in the eyes of the anti-doping agencies, that they were introducing HGH blood tests, quoted by an expert in the LA Times as being about 1,000 times easier to detect than the standard urine testing at the time. Now, is it possible that these events are related? I'm not sure, and to be honest with the information that we have, it doesn't make much sense. LeBron was dealing with back issues before he took the recovery time, and the HGH blood test was announced for next season. And it doesn't take HGH that long at all to get out your system, so. And all of that's on top of the fact that this was
Maybe he
announced
just needed a
after
rest.
the season ended. But a day or two later, Jeff Teague walked back on his statements.
It was a joke, bruh. That people like, how did you know he was on steroids?
I know some
didn't
people
know.
probably got
no,
on
I
him
don't
about that.
care, because if he was and I knew, I would have told that nigga give me some.
I would
have tapped in. I would have been 6'3", 285 too, nigga, running like a Mack truck. Like,
If you had a recipe, there would be no club pops on you
no,
right now.
I wish I had the recipe. Like, matter of fact, if you got some, bro, tap in.
Send the remix.
I'm ready to make a comeback. Shit, me, John Wall, send it all of us. Shit, we trying to get back.
You too old, you gonna fall apart.
There is one other accusation that came from Kevin Garnett.
He got
said
a lot of
this.
backlash
Come
for
on, that
that.
little dude explosive, bro.
He is,
He
but
got
you seen
prime.
his dad? His dad on that balcony.
but
he on that new juice.
Belco is short for Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative, which was a PED provider for many athletes, its most famous client being Barry Bonds.
Dang.
The founder and operator of Belco, Victor Conti, said this about PED testing in the 2024 Paris Olympics.
The drug testing that they are doing now before the 2024 Olympics has got all sorts of loopholes in it, and it is very easy for the athletes to use PEDs. They have in-competition tests and out-of-competition tests. During the out-of-competition, they don't even test for about 80 stimulants and narcotics. So you can use all these drugs in training, but they only test for them at the competition. So right there's a loophole you can drive a Mack truck through.
Those loopholes also exist.
So
in the
LeBron
NBA.
is using
Mostly,
these
I would
loopholes,
say
is
that
what
the
y'all
NBA
saying.
is super competent and stuff. Like if you want to fix up an international arena for All-Star game, whatever, like they know how to do this stuff, right? So I just assumed they were competent with the testing too. So when the Lance Armstrong thing blew up, I was like, wow, this is. I'm friends with this guy Dan Coyle who wrote the book The Secret Race, which was kind of the book of doping and cycling. I didn't like read that book. I studied that book. It was a how-to of doping, which was fascinating, which meant it was also a how-to of doping testing, and was kind of attuned to the idea that there might be a little trouble in the NBA with doping. Now that the how-to manual is published and a bestseller and in bookstores globally, let's just see. I thought I was calling them to give them a chance to brag about how they would have caught Lance Armstrong, right? How their system's better. So I called to say this is the topic, and they've often done this where they'll put you on a conference call with a number of people. Literally, I don't know if I'm allowed to say who was there, but but not the commissioner, but just about as good, right? Like, I'm gonna guess there were 5 or 6 people on that call, top people, and I'm rolling out facts they've never heard before. It was pretty clear. I know a lot more about doping than they do. One of the ones that stood out to me was, there's a part in the book where the dopers come to test Lance Armstrong. I think the way that it works is they show up unannounced, and they're gonna test not the whole team, but like some members of the team.
So this is all that they do?
Armstrong and a teammate, and like, well, here's the teammate. And during the short time they were testing the teammate, they were able to infuse Lance Armstrong with a pint of saline, and he passed the test. The point of this being that 5 minutes was sufficient advance notice to pass a drug test. I don't think I'd brought up that part yet, that story, when I was meeting the NBA, but they were like, oh, these tests are totally impossible to beat. Like, you know, the tester lands, then he just calls the team when he lands and says, hey, I'm here, I'm gonna need like these 4 guys. And then they call the 4 guys to make sure they're gonna come in, and then like they're tested within like 5 or 6 hours. I'm like, oh.
So they had time to beat the test?
It's not great. That's not great, Bob. You know, like
Not at all.
6 hours.
That's what it sounded like. They had ways
As you can tell by this cycling example,
to beat it.
It's not hard at all to flush PEDs out your system. And Henry's reporting was from over a decade ago. It's even easier now.
The big loophole they have.
Wow,
now
I
is
didn't know it was
these
that easy
whereabouts
to beat the drug
failures,
test.
which is where you know they come to not test you and you just lie on your kitchen floor and pretend to get really quiet and pretend that you're not home. Like that system would work pretty well in the NBA now.
Right now, which was collectively bargained by the league and the Players Association, it says that if your dope test collector comes to your home unannounced in the offseason and you're not there, quote unquote, or you refuse flat out to just take it, they just leave and fine you. $1,000 for 1 day late, $2,000 for 2 days late, up to $5,000 for 5 days late and later on. Basically, if you refuse to take the test for an entire week, the anti-doping test, in the offseason, you pay a $25,000 fine. In track and field, you get banned for doing that. So why so lax? Well, Henry's got a clue based on his time reporting with ESPN.
A guy who was in the room for negotiating the earlier CBA, the 2011 one, he told me straight out, like, why would I want a single player to ever...
Now I'll say this, even the fact that after they come and like say they show up to their houses, and this is the way it's explained, if the person that's doing the test, the drug testing, shows up to your house and you just don't want to take the test, you could tell them you're not taking it, and then you get a certain amount of days and you get fined each day up to 5 days. So they already said within the hours you could flush that type of issue, like flush the drugs out, if you know that it's gonna happen, if you know that the test is coming. So if you have 5 days, you'll probably take that fine up to what, $5,000 or however much it was, $1,000 for the first day, $2,000 for the second day, up to $5,000, however much the fine was. These are rich athletes, so they'll take them fines and give them the amount of days they need to flush it out their system. I definitely did not know it was that easy to beat the system, and if it's that easy, you know, maybe it's not as much as we think LeBron taking care of his body, or maybe it's more so him using these PEDs. And this is what the video is saying. It's very interesting. I think it's a good theory, using these PEDs, and he just knows when to flush it out because he knows when the tests are coming. He's an inside guy. He knows the ins and outs, and they kind of know it's there. But like the guy said, one of the guys that was big on the PEDs, and he uses a lot of it with his athletes, he said that there's so many ways to beat it. Like there's a bunch of loopholes, and any athlete that has the money and has the accessibility to these people that knows the loopholes, they could be using that to prolong their careers. And I could see why they're using LeBron as the target of the guy, because 20 years strong, going into year 41 season, maybe gonna play long enough for his second son to make it into the league. Definitely there's something that, you know, that could be said there. And then there's the allegations also, but they're only allegations, so they can't be proven. But there's a lot of things pointing towards it could be a possibility. Let's jump back into it.
ever fail a drug test. It's like the league is essentially a marketing body. That's really primarily what they do, right? And so they take a marketing point of view here, which is we have a product and we want to shine it up. And if you see a little flaw in the product, like, please stop. You know, like, please don't say that.
Which makes sense. Look at what the steroids
Man, these
scandal
are
did to the
million-dollar
MLB.
athletes.
It had massive reverberations that still echo to this day. Why would any pro sports league want to go through all that? But it's here where I ask the question, which might be a potentially super controversial one, why are steroids bad?
What difference does it make if they use steroids? And they go, well, they're cheating. Right. And I go, it doesn't make you hit the ball better. He goes, well, it makes you stronger. It doesn't make you hit a curveball. What it does is you recover quicker the next day because they play every day. If I hit you with a steroid, it's gonna make you a better player. No, it's not. It's gonna make you bigger and stronger, but but that doesn't make you a better player.
A majority
gonna
of the players
enhance you,
who were
though.
caught using PEDs in the NBA weren't using the anabolic steroids that make you bigger. They were using HGH, which is mostly used for recovery. In the season that's seen probably the most
The wear
star
and
games
tear.
out in NBA history. If there's a substance out there that can promote healing, why not use it? That's the question that Mark Cuban asked and gave the University of Michigan $800,000 to answer in 2014. The ACL injury is a devastating injury for a multitude of reasons for a pro basketball player.
I would think
But
that
one
would
of the
be
biggest
healthy.
is that once your ACL is healed, the quad muscle for that corresponding leg
If you're
doesn't
just
come
healing
back as
faster.
strong. Even if a player comes back full strength, their tendons are all good, the surrounding muscles are weaker. The study commissioned by Mark Cuban looked at basketball players who'd suffered ACL tears and provided some of them with a recovery treatment augmented by HGH. It was found that quad muscles treated with the HGH had 30% more torque, that is power, upon full recovery than those who hadn't took HGH. We haven't heard anything from this front since.
Would you be a proponent of maybe
I
somehow,
think that would be some cutting-edge
instituting
stuff.
protocols where HGH could be used to help guys kind of get back on the field or on the court?
It would be helpful for
I mean,
athletes.
look at it. We say it's okay for people to get LASIK for their eyes, and there's always a chance that something can go wrong. Say that you can get Tommy John surgery, or any surgery for that matter, is only performance enhancing. Tore a ligament, fix it. We don't say don't do it because it can be performance enhancing. We say let's do what's right to get you healthy again.
Then what's the argument then on not just allowing everything, including steroids?
The argument is that the World Anti-Doping Association, and in particular the Olympics, just says no. And they have so much PR sway, nobody wants to fight it. So when I bring it
So
up
they
at a
just
meeting,
consider
whether
it
it's an
doping.
NBA meeting or other athletic organizations I've gone and spoken about it to, then their response is, we just don't want the PR nightmare.
Mark Cuban on this topic
Media.
of
Media.
HGH in particular is he told me that he thought that with the Mavericks new protocol, players could be in their peak to the age 50. So I'm like, I don't know what the
Well,
Mavericks new
that would be
protocol
crazy.
is, but
Tell
Come on,
age
Mark.
50 in their peak.
You know?
Yeah.
And like around then, around that same time, he had double hip replacement surgery and was on Dancing with the Stars 5 weeks later, looking younger than ever.
Okay.
I'm not saying, but like
Henry Abbott clearly isn't on the same side as Mark Cuban here.
it feels like a little bit of a culture of cheating. It feels like you would be a little bit of a goody two shoes if you were like, I'm not doing that. It upsets me. It has upset me for the long time. Like if you watch track and field, you're gonna hear star athletes brag about being clean, and when someone fails a drug test, they're gonna be like, see, like I told you, like I'm clean. I beat that guy, and he was doping. Like, do you know how hard it would be to compete with dopers when you're clean? Like you would want to
Right.
brag.
It's just
It
hard to
blows my
compete with
mind
them
that
if they
I'm not aware
doping
of
and you
an
clean.
NBA athlete ever once bragging about being clean.
Okay, sure, but outside of moral qualms, why is this a bad thing?
But the answer is because it's very dangerous. It's just using steroids increases your likelihood of sudden cardiac death 6 to 20 times, according to one.
Oh my goodness,
And
6 to
that's
20
nobody
times.
uses just anabolic steroids, right? Like almost everybody who dopes, at least in the cycling examples, adds HGH or testosterone or other stuff. These things in combination have not been studied, but the baseline is 6 to 20 times more likelihood of sudden cardiac death. And
Oh my
basketball
goodness,
is
it's dangerous.
freakishly high rate of death. Like, NCAA Division I basketball players die at something like 10 times the rate, check me on this, of football players.
He's largely right,
What?
with one distinction. It's black male basketball players that are most at risk. White college basketball players are 4 times less likely to die from sudden cardiac arrest than black players. But
Oh
the
my
point
goodness.
still stands.
When Bronny James collapsed of sudden cardiac arrest, his teammate had done the same thing 1 year before. Like it's very common. It's
Oh my goodness, I
very-
didn't know that was that
it's like-
common.
wasn't it like 1 in 3,000 NCAA Division I players has cardiac arrest? But this is the answer to the
Oh.
league and to the players. Is like,
Dang.
if you want to protect these players, many of whom have had heart problems, right? You can't ignore this factor. It's probably the biggest factor.
In the 1980s, a doctor by the name of Bob Goldman conducted a survey where he asked around 200 top-class athletes if they would take a miracle drug that would allow them to win any competition they entered, but it would kill them in 5 years. 52% of them said that they would take the drug. This study's been revisited since the 80s,
No way.
and the numbers weren't nearly as dramatic the next time.
Not taking that.
6% of athletes said that they would take it even if it did kill them, and 12% of them said they would take it if it was illegal, but didn't kill them. It should be noted, by the way, that this study was funded by WADA. Take that as you will. But regardless of what the true percentage is, we know it's not zero.
Congratulations, you've assembled the most competitive, obsessive, hardworking men in the world. That's who you have here. Of course, they're gonna be willing to trade some years of their life for this. So clearly they're not the ones who will self-moderate. It would be stupid. That's why they have the league. And that's why they have the rules. That's why they have the testers, right? Is so that somebody will tell them, hey man, you've done enough for today, right? Your clean workout where you got tired for 90 minutes is sufficient. You don't have to do the doped workout that lasts for 2 hours and 15 minutes, right? You can be an all-star without dope. That's a really powerful message to send a young player, right? And so I think that's where we're failing.
Now, with all of the information that I've just now presented, we once more ask the question, is LeBron James on PEDs? The answer might not be clear, but what is clear is that it's a lot easier to do it than you would think. The NBA seems to turn a willing blind eye to the whole matter. But what I think ends up murkier is the status of steroid use in our society. Is it really this evil substance that should be nowhere near the world of sport, or should it be accepted to let these NBA players deal with the ever-growing rigors of the modern game? I mean, if LeBron is using steroids, would you care? And if he is, but he would have retired 5 years ago if he was completely clean, is that really the more desirable situation? As fans, and for as LeBron as a basketball player, I think we can say that the answer is no. But as people, what should we think? Thanks for watching.
I'll say that I'm thinking that the healing, as far as the recovery, I think that would be a very, very good thing within sports, whatever sport it is. As far as the enhancements of maybe durability, I don't know, maybe strength enhancements, but if strength and durability and things should be off limits, and stamina and whatever you're trying to boost should be off limits, then I think it all should be off limits, because there will also be people that aren't using it, and the people that aren't using it, they're at a very, very large disadvantage going against a person who is using these PEDs or can afford it when they can't afford it. So I think it should just be maybe just take it out completely. But at the same time, I mean, in the results, just whether he's doing it or not, we'll never know, because whatever he's using or whatever people he has behind the scenes, they probably hiding it good enough to the point to where we'll never hear about this until years and years after the career is over. But definitely a possibility. There's a possibility that a lot of people are using it, and there's also pros and cons to it. Like they say, whenever some of the guys tear their ACL, the recovery or it coming back, the shape back, would be better if they did use some type of PEDs. But then maybe if they use that, they wouldn't be able to go back and play ball. Mark Cuban, they said after he had these hip surgery, he possibly used it, and he comes back using these hips like he's 10 to 15 years younger, So there's some definite possibilities whenever it comes down to helping, period. But within sports, I can understand why it shouldn't be used. Now, whether LeBron is using it or not, it's a hard possibility, because it's 50-50. He could be, he could not be. It could be very natural, or it could be very, very, very strong use of steroids. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I like this type of video. This is a very different type of video. We're going to try to do more of these style type of videos. We're going to be doing a lot of LeBron. We're going to be doing a lot of the MJ videos, old school basketball, new school basketball, music, whatever you guys want to see. So make sure you drop it down in the comments what you guys want to see next. But do me two big favors. Like the video. By liking the video, the way YouTube algorithm works, YouTube will be pushing the video out to more people. You'll be directly helping me to grow. So I appreciate that. But also, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get to hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Everyone's subscriber counts. So, please, spaz out on the little things at the bottom. If you made it all the way through the video, you're the real MVP. I hope you know what it is. Until next time, I'm out, Steve.